Hey, what's happening, guys? Pragmatic Addict here with my good friend Jacob Johnson. He's been in a ton of these videos. You should know the face by now. So we actually got the privilege of finally seeing Quiet Place 2 yesterday.
After a whole year of waiting. Technically 2 years of waiting.
1 year of delays and 4 postponements. So let's talk about this. Quiet Place 2 picks up immediately where the first left off. So if you're not familiar with where the first left off, I don't know what to tell you. There are certain moments in this film where the emotion is so dead on with a certain scene, but in order for that scene to work, you really have to have that knowledge of the first movie. So if you're gonna see A Quiet Place 2, just watch the first one immediately before you go see it. Just trust me. But with saying that, let's actually get into the review. So Quiet Place 2 is obviously probably the most hyped movie of the entire year. The first one was, to me personally, a very surprising hit. I'm not saying that I wasn't expecting the first one to be good, but something about it, hear me out, something about it just didn't seem all that original to me. It just didn't seem all that creative to me. And I wasn't too familiar with John Krasinski's work other than The Office, which I'm more of a less like I'm familiar with The Office, but I just don't know how I feel about John Krasinski up to this point, or I didn't up to that point. But I saw the movie in the theaters. I mean, the movie was at a 96%. It's a horror movie. It's a directorial debut. I'm all about it. I saw that movie in the theater, and I knew that if there was a second one, I was gonna be there opening night. So, Quiet Place 2, how does it deliver? Right off the bat, a lot of other reviews about this movie are saying that it's just like the first. You're going to sit in that theater and it's going to be quiet, and that's the way you have to experience it. Not really.
Not at all, no.
There's a lot more action in this movie. There's a lot more dialogue in it, weirdly enough, which you will see in the movie how that happens. It feels not necessarily more like a story, but it has more character in it, let's just say that. This is not the tight-lipped, want-to-eat popcorn very quietly experience movie that you're going to expect. It's got a lot of the originality from the first one. It's got the same atmosphere, the same kind of ambiance, the same kind of playoff, but it's not really one that you need to experience quietly. And again, I'm trying to make this as less spoiler possible review as possible, but I'm just saying, like, right off the bat, there's probably going to be some people talking in that theater. It's not the type of experience that the first was. And saying that, the first was such a good movie that we do want the second one. And while the second one doesn't give us, or me personally, what the first did, again, it still gives us much more character development, which for this type of movie may seem a little off because, again, it has dialogue and actual character story. But in saying that, it's not in the whole, we have to through this thing carefully and quietly like the first was. For example, at the end of the first movie, remember the deaf girl with the little ringy thingy? You get that a lot in this movie. That's kind of like a huge weapon used in this movie.
Big time.
And to me personally, there wasn't enough tension at first because we go into this movie knowing where these characters stand now. We go into this movie kind of knowing how they can fight these monsters, and it's shown right off the bat in this movie. So it's in the first one, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know who these monsters were, so we wanted to be quiet. We wanted to give that, cinematic experience of the movie to ourselves, and it worked. With this one, there's a lot of gunshots. There's a lot of yelling. There's a lot of fighting. There's that whole speaker thing with the death girl and everything. From the get-go, that is kind of like the weapon that is used now. While I do think that the story here is good, and while I do like the fact of how they went about these characters, it doesn't give us what A Quiet Place did. In saying that, everything that you could want out of the sequel, besides of what you would expect, is there. I'm not going to say that this is a perfect sequel, and I'm not going to say that it did everything it could have, but I will say that while it doesn't capture the magic it did of the original, otherwise, what you would want out of the sequel, you pretty much get. I'm feeling a solid 7.1 to a 7.2 out of 10. That's going to be my take on this movie. Jacob, say a few words.
Well, in my personal opinion, I felt there was some pretty good scenes in there, and I especially liked the character development. You know, a lot of those horror movies, especially ones that I won't mention on Netflix, don't really get into the character enough.
Are you talking about Bird Box?
I was going to say Voldemort's name. He who should not be named. Anyway, I especially liked how they used jump scare to actually psychologically scare you during the movie. Usually,
I was thinking that too.
I feel jump scares are used too much as an excuse to come off as a scary movie. It's kind of like a laugh track on a sitcom. It's just like you're giving the appearance that it's funny, but it's not. But with the jump scares in horror movies these days, it just seems like they do it just to make you think it's scary when it's not. But they actually make you...
I thought about that too.
In this movie, just like the first, they actually make the jump scares psychologically scare you, like a horror movie should. You should be psychologically scared as well as
and it's not because
physically.
It's not because a monster's like boo. It's not like that.
No. The second that noise happens, you know what's gonna happen next.
Yeah, that's what I will say about this movie. While it doesn't have the same tone as the original, it does well with its volume. It does well with its tension at times, where sometimes it will be a quieter scene, but you know what's happening in the scene where it's leading to, so it's got that anxiety-inducing, tension to it in that pace, and then something will completely throw you off guard. My favorite thing about this movie is that it's very good with not just like pulling punches, but it's unpredictability. I thought the first was good and pretty creative for what it was, even though I didn't think it was that original. I think the second does better with its story. I think it does better with its ending as well. It does better with its character development, with its pace. My biggest flaw with the second movie is that it wasn't the movie that the first was. You don't go in this movie thinking like, you don't do that. You go in this movie and it's like, oh wow, people are actually talking. Wow, there's a lot of noise. You see more of the creatures as well in this movie. But again, how the movie starts and what I was displaying, they don't feel like that big of a threat. It just feels simply as a continuation of where the first left off. That's it. Not a bad movie. Not as good as the first though.
I will say this though, I felt a little empty after the ending.
I personally loved the ending. I liked the ending of the first one as well, but I think the second one, I think the second one's ending could not have been better.
It just felt like that's it. That's all we get.
Really quickly, you will not get a conclusion in this movie, just like you didn't in the first. You leave this movie thinking, oh yeah, no, we got more of the story and I'm good with it.
I'm not saying I didn't like the movie or the ending, but I will say this. I give it a solid 8. Solid 8. Okay.
So that is going to do it for our review of A Quiet Place, guys. Definitely go see it. If you like the first, you're going to like this one. But I don't think there's going to be anybody out there that says this is better than the first. This is better than the first. I think everybody out there will like this movie to a good degree. But it's not what the first was. As most sequels are. But unlike most sequels, this one actually works. So that's going to do it for our review of A Quiet Place 2. Let us know what you guys thought of the second one as well. And let us know what you guys thought about the video down below in the comments. Take care, guys, and have a good night.